Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to HBTV Channel 9. I'm Elsie Harry. This is The Conversation, and we are just about 5 days out from the general and regional elections. So, as usual, as we have been doing during this week and the last week, the coalition is giving you an opportunity to speak with some of their candidates for the general and regional elections. Tonight, I'm speaking with Dr. Astell Collins, a man who wears many hats. He is the chairman of the board at Habitat for Humanity and youth advisor at the Pan-Caribbean Partnership Against HIV and AIDS. But the Dr. Collins that we should all be familiar with is the one who is passionate about youth leadership and development. And he has dedicated most of his time to this area. Tonight he is here speaking with me in his capacity as a candidate for the general elections with the APNU AFC. Dr. Collins, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. So the first thing I want to hear from you, and this is because this is the role that I and so many other young people know you in. How did you get involved in youth leadership and development?
You know what was interesting enough is that I was a medical technologist.
Wow.
For 4 years at Eureka Medical Lab. And then there's some beckoning of purpose, and I left and I wrote a book of poetry. And after that, I did a Caribbean tour, ended up in the Bahamas with Dr. Miles Monroe. And then from a conference in the Bahamas, I was invited to South Africa. In South Africa, I was further exposed to Dr. Miles Monroe. And that is what birthed the passion for developing the next generation of leaders. So yes, in short, that is it.
Wow. From a medical technologist to all that you are today.
Yes.
Very interesting. I didn't even know that you were a medical
Yeah,
technologist.
both my brother and I. But the thing is, in terms of getting deeply involved, it was Abraham Lincoln who said, "The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulties, and we must rise not to but with the occasion. Our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew and disenthrall ourselves from all patterns and all ideas." So I believe that we can only better serve this generation if we are prepared and positioned to do so. So my desire is to see how best I can reposition and empower the next generation, because there's a complaint that we're not given the opportunity. I don't think that is so. What I do believe is that we need to retool ourselves. I often say you'll always be reduced to what you can manage. And I think it's in wisdom and prudence that many were not allowed to make mistakes, and thus the desire and the need for us to be retooled and reskilled. So I think the administration has done an excellent job in terms of ensuring that we're given the tools that we need to better serve the society.
There we go. And now here you are.
Yes.
You are a candidate for the general election. So that is the ultimate, I think, extreme of putting yourself out there to serve your community and the people who need this service.
Yes.
What are some of the major initiatives that you have been involved in?
I have been in a number of initiatives, but before now, I actually threw myself into the ring, so to speak, for the local government election.
Oh.
And there's one thing I want to applaud the administration. There's a lot of talk about our president not being a man of democracy and things like that, but history would prove, and the statistics would show that in just 3 short years we've had 2 local government elections, and they had the previous administration had 20 years, and did not see it fit to empower the people. They have actually chosen leaders, the IMCs. They have actually forced themselves or forced their ideologies or perception of leadership onto the people by putting in place those IMCs. But this administration has demonstrated not only respect for the democracy, but respect for the will of the people, and have placed power back into the hands of the people. Hence, you have the keys in the palm. So I believe that our history will judge us based on the evidence that we've demonstrated as an administration. Not only that we respect the Constitution, but democracy. So I have actually participated in the local government election. And even though I didn't win by the voting, I won the hearts of the people, because I served with a degree of authenticity. I was sincere in what I was doing. I often remark that I would start my day in prayer with the guys, because we were digging a canal, I would be in the trenches by 8, 9, and by 10, I have to shower, put on a suit, and go deliver a seminar. And then in the afternoon, come back and compete in the trenches. So I believe the administration has a desire to ensure that the youth are exposed to leadership from that level. So they have created the environment that made it necessary so that we are exposed to the dynamics of leadership. So you don't have these lofty ideas. So when you come in, there's no stumbling. You're adequately exposed and adequately informed about what is required at that localized level. So I think that we have an administration that not only cares about the future generation, but have actually put in place mechanisms and frameworks that ensures that they're adequately informed. Look, we've had, and the other side have actually boasted about, we have a lot of young people in positions of leadership. They boast about a young list, but we have had disasters. We had our current presidential candidate. We have so many who are young, but have only been mannequins of democracy, and have only mimicked the philosophy of a hidden hand. So I think our administration has a more authentic approach to leadership, and it's more organic, where you're not, it's not a synthetic form of leadership. It's more organic. You cultivate it. You're given the tools that are required so that you can adequately represent not only the philosophies and the ideologies of the particular political parties, but the aspirations of the people. We have created a lot of history. For the first time, you've had that type of coalition government where the masses of the people are represented. It's not a one-party rule. You have a multiplicity. Guyana is so dynamic and diverse that we're multi-ethnic, multiracial. I remember representing Guyana in China, and there was someone from Sri Lanka, I believe, who, because I traveled with my East Indian counterpart, and they asked her, is he really from Guyana? They did not believe there were two ethnicities from one country. And it helps you to understand how dynamic and diverse we are. When I was with Habitat, I'm no longer with Habitat. Habitat is no longer in Guyana. But when I was the chairman for Habitat, chairman for the board, I had to travel to England. And I visited our Foreign Affairs Ministry before traveling. And the question was asked, what makes you Guyanese? You've always been asked different questions, but I have never been asked that question, what makes me Guyanese? It was the president, Kwame, who said, I am not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa was born in me. And I believe being Guyanese is so much more than where you were born. Because you have people from different countries who are nationalized Guyanese. My son was actually born in South Africa, Azania Michael Collins, and he is Guyanese, nationalized. So I think that we need to have a sense of patriotism that has to be rebirthed and reinstituted in our hearts, whereby we have a sense of longing to give back and service to Guyana. I often said my seminars usually create a platform and an environment that helps people to understand and identify their talents, abilities, gifts, and strengths so that they can better serve.
While we're on the topic of service, I want you to put this into the context of why young people should not only vote in the general elections, but why they should participate, as you have done, by becoming a candidate.
Becoming a candidate is not necessarily my participation. However, I believe that the youth has a voice that has been stripped and taken away from them. We have been muzzled for 23 years. And I think that now we have an opportunity where your vote is your voice. So participation is not just voting, even though it's important. I often said that I have faith that the coalition will win, but faith without work is dead. So the necessity for your voting is absolute and it is required. But I believe our participation as young people is that we now have an opportunity to say to this generation, I will not be a generational thief. I will give to my generation all that I am, all that I hope to be. And I believe that we have an administration that creates not only the environment that makes it necessary, but makes it possible. Like I said before, we were muzzled. We were not even allowed to choose who we want to serve us in our local democracy. Now you have that. You have very young people or very young persons who are actually participating in the local government election framework. So you have that authenticity and sincerity of an administration that not only allows you but encourages you. They're not threatened by you wanting to lead or wanting your voice to be heard. But I believe that now in this general election, our vote is our voice, and it would be remiss of us to remain silent. There was a time we were afraid. You know, there's a song, you unravel me with your melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies until all my fears are gone. There was a time we were afraid. We were gripped. This nation was gripped by fear. And I often love to remark that my deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our
But that
deepest
we
fear
are
is that we're more
powerful
powerful beyond
beyond
measures.
measure.
Our light,
Yes.
not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I? To be gorgeous, talented, fabulous, brilliant. Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people wouldn't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children. We were born to make manifest the glory of God as it's within us. It's not in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I believe that we are in a time where we have destroyed and diminished fear. So much so that there's a courage. It was Maya Angelou who says, courage is the most important of all virtues because without courage you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. But the opposite of courage is not fear, but conformity. One of the greatest challenges in life is to be yourself in a world that is trying to make you like everyone else. So I believe even though we are, it is the demand upon us. This generation has demanded us to arise and shine, for the light has indeed come. But I believe that we have to give credence to where it is due. We have to honor, you know.
Okay, in terms of honoring the people that have made these things possible, what are some of the initiatives that the coalition government has put in place to promote youth development and youth, participation, youth leadership?
Like I said, with the local government election, that is one that they have allowed and instituted. Well, actually, they often say it is our right to participate in the local democracy or to promote democracy. There is the Boysham Collins College, where you can actually be informed and enlightened about the public service. So you're no longer going into the public service ignorant and feeling your way. There's actually a college that you can actually participate. There's GITC. There is there's this other thing. There's a youth corps.
Okay.
There is the Hayes program for the indigenous community, and one thing I loved and admired about the administration is how they have been able to bridge the gap that separates the coast from the hinterland. We had two. There was a dichotomy of our Guyanese identity, those on the coast and those in the hinterland. But based on the various programs and initiatives, we were able to bridge the gap. There are so many ITC hubs within the indigenous community. There was a time I heard ministers speaking about a grandmother crying because she was able to view her grandchild in real time out, because of the advent of the internet. There is a number of initiatives. There's a SLED program where you just have an idea. You form yourself in a group or a corps, and you can access resources. There's a revolving fund for youth business development, the Small Business Bureau. So there are a number of initiatives that the government has made available to the citizenry, especially the young people, so that they are empowered and repositioned to better serve, like I said.
And the president just launched the Decade of Development. What are your thoughts about this decade?
I often remark there's a woman whom I represented the administration at a centenarian birthday. And I remarked that she had endured or survived a decade of deliverance where we became an independent. We're now 50 years as a republic. There was a decade of decadence where there was death and destruction and abuses. There's a decade now of development that she's ushering in. So the decade of development speaks to vision and a commitment to ensuring that all Guyanese are afforded the best life. In my campaign during the local government election, even though we said a good life for all, I said better matters. And I think the decade of development speaks to better than good, in that we are going to be able to look forward to a framework and an environment where there is development naturally with the infrastructure, with the healthcare providing, you would find me giving out tablets. Is the president's commitment and love to ensure that all the youth are able to participate and communicate in a digital society so that we are on par with the rest of the world. He's not only interested in our rate of development as a third world nation, but how do we compete and participate in the rest of the world. So I think that the decade of development speaks to the vision of our president. He can only serve the next 5 years, but he's speaking beyond his
Yes.
5 years, which speaks volumes. Because a president or a leader is not only concerned with the next election, but the next generation. And we have been gifted and blessed with a David Granger, who have the heart of a father that is committed to ensuring that the next generation is not only poised, but given the necessary tools to be empowered, to empower, because they said hurt people, but those who are empowered can empower.
Yes.
So I think that we are blessed and gifted with the type of mind and heart that exists in our president. And it, today I was doing a seminar with the early child caregivers, and we spoke about the abuses that was endured under the previous administration and the liberty that they found in the current administration. And it was remarkable to see a woman, because when a woman speaks of abuse, it's not just physical, it transcends physical, it's sometimes more emotional and mental and even psychological. But when you find that a woman can speak to her sense of safety and how, because of the current administration, she feels that there's a degree of equality. There was where we fight for gender equality, but then there's something called equity. Equality speaks of me giving, if you have two, I get two. That's equality. But sometimes equity speaks of justice, where you have two, but sometimes I may need four to be on equal par. So you find this administration has made available resources and the framework and the environment that makes a woman feel that she don't have to fight for gender equality because she has been afforded equity. So I want to applaud not only my president, whom I am blessed and humbled and honored to represent, but the administration whom he has allowed his philosophies to permeate through the various ministries. For example, we have the Ministry of Social Cohesion. Never before where you had a policy making body, a ministry that was the sole purpose is to ensure that the tenets and the framework are in place so that we can foster social cohesion. Some say it's not possible, but we have a president committed to the ideal
working
of
towards
social
it.
of
Yes.
promoting social cohesion.
And while we're talking about ideologies, this is
Mm.
one of the final questions that I'll ask you for
Okay.
tonight. You are a Christian,
Yes,
and I would like to know, how does your faith impact your politics?
very good. That's a very good question. Thank you for that question. I'll answer it this way. It's a poem I usually love to say, but it encapsulates the philosophy that speaks to my Christianity. And it's that I sought God and found myself. For I'm in him as he is in me. This is neither religion or theology, but the essence of spirituality. Humanity has lost its way, but he remains the potter as we are the clay. Life has deceived us into making a living when love is all about giving. Time, though infinite, misrepresents the purpose of the fight. We battle for the greater good that is in mankind, not for the place of power to treat each other unkind. There's a presence that envelopes us with peace, and the same accepts us in spite of that unholy peace. We are lost but loved. We are disconnected yet cared for. He shouted and has whispered, call on me whenever you feel separated from the peace that I am. We are not insignificant drops in the ocean of humanity. We are oceans within a drop, because greater is he who is in you than he that is in the world. I think we have been positioned and poised for leadership naturally. The Bible says when there is wickedness in positions of leadership, the people mourn. But the people rejoice when there's righteousness in leadership. So I think that it speaks to our need. The Bible says to pray for those in leadership. But it's better to present yourself and allow the peace that surpasses all understanding, that God speaks about, to prevail. So when there's peace when the righteous rule. So I believe that it is fitting for the church to arise and shine, for the light has indeed come. And I believe that we have to progressively bring into being the reality. You know, the Bible says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. So it's to have God's philosophies and ideologies of what rulership being infused in our local democracy, and how that being the standard. When the enemy comes in like a flood, God says he would raise the standard. So I think we have to be standard bearers in terms of, you know, leadership, and that is what we have in our president. He too is a Christian, and you see the level of dignity and integrity. The last book Dr. Monroe presented or wrote was The Power of Character in Leadership. They said a lot of politicians speak a lot, but their words mean nothing. And it speaks to even the character of Nelson Mandela. When he comes into a room, he didn't even have to speak, because his life was so full of character, because character is the cradle of your credibility. That's why we some of us, sometimes we want to know what is the noise we're hearing when you hear from the opposition. You know, because how could you speak to integrity and character when you have had 23 years of mismanagement and misbehavior? So I think it's an absurdity, it's objectionable, it's repugnant, it's repulsive, and I think it's insulting to any Guyanese who have endured and survived the tyranny of the PPPC. So, in closing, you said it was the final question. In
Yes.
closing, I believe that we have an administration who's not only caring but capable, who's not only competent but is filled with character, especially in our president, David Arthur Granger. And I'm proud, humbled, and honored to be able to represent him, especially on his list. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Collins. And I think that you've definitely given the viewers a lot of information that they can use to decide on why they should vote for the APNU AFC coalition in the upcoming election.
In closing,
Yes.
you see our manifesto is not just a book of promises.
Yes.
It's a covenant. It's a contract with the people. We have a president who will not sell us out. We have a leader who will not only stand up for us, but represent us at the highest level with the highest form of integrity. So I think, put your hand in the hand with the key.
And with that, we have come to the end of a very interesting and a very insightful conversation tonight with Dr. Astell Collins, candidate in the upcoming general elections for the APNU AFC coalition. Remember, your vote definitely matters, so please go out and vote on March 2nd. I'm Elsie Harry. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.